Perfect. All right. Hey, everyone. So I usually do slides, so I'm doing a very stupid thing to try and actually demo and write some code. I've been praying to the demo gods for the last 6.5 hours, and something broke right before this, so I guess fingers crossed, and we'll see. But if you haven't heard of Vercel before, I like to think of Vercel as providing like the infrastructure and the frameworks to help you go from idea to fully launched products. And speaking of ideas, we started hacking around about 2 years ago now on what's known colloquially now as a coding agent, but at the time it was just like, can GPT-3 output React code? And in the process of doing so, we ran into some problems with what was like a very nascent tooling ecosystem. And so naturally, we kind of built our own tools and then open sourced them. And so that's where the AI SDK came up. So we call the AI SDK a TypeScript toolkit for building AI applications. And yeah, rather than doing slides, I thought I would walk through this title. The title of this talk was Building Agents with the SDK, and I figured we might as well try and build one live with all you guys today. The initial idea, it's actually kind of hard to come up with an idea for an agent you can build in 10 minutes. I was going to start with like the weather agent that fetches a weather API and then tells you a plan of what to do. But that's really, really boring. It's literally on every single quick start guide. And I think it's because it's the only ungated API that exists. But given that we are in the office of a VC, and I actually used to be a VC, I figured we could try and build a VC due diligence agent in the next 10 minutes. So we're going to give it a whirl. If it works, whoopee. If it doesn't, sorry. So what I got here is just a, can everyone see, by the way? Yeah, big enough? Cool. So what I've got here is a TypeScript file. It's got a single function called due diligence agent that does absolutely nothing right now. It takes in a prompt and then logs out that prompt to the console. So if we run this script, we get out our prompt. Very complicated stuff. The first thing that we want to do is take this prompt and send it to a language model and then hopefully do something with that language model output. So what we're going to do is use the first AI SDK function that it's number 2, actually. The first AI SDK function, which is called generate text. What we have here is we first specify the model that we want to use. This is the first kind of big feature that we're known for with the SDK, in that you can switch out which model and which provider you want to use by just changing out this single line of code. So at the moment, this is going to OpenAI's GPT 4.1 mini. If we wanted to go to Perplexity, we would just change this out to say Perplexity, and now this is going to, oops, everything crashed. Now we're going to Sonar's model here. And I think at the time of me speaking, we support 48 different providers. So this is everything from Grok, OpenAI, Azure, Anthropic, Bedrock, you name it, we pretty much have support for it. And then we have like quite a vibrant community ecosystem that are building like things for local models as well. So if you want to work with LM Studio or Ollama, that's supported as well. So enough blabbering. Let's try and actually run this now. And we've got a prompt going in saying, hey, how are you? And we run this, and we should get out the wonderful, hi, I'm doing well. How can I assist you today? But we had to wait a little bit. So let's look at how we can update this to stream. So the AI SDK, we've been very creative on this team. We have the generate text function, and now we have the stream text function. The innards are exactly the same. We pick our model, we pick our prompt. But this time, rather than getting out a simple one-shot generation variable, we get a stream from the provider. So we iterate over the stream, we get a chunk, and then we check if that chunk is a text chunk and write it out to the terminal. So if we run this, we'll get the same result, but this time just streamed out. OK, so language model has asked how I can assist you today. You can assist me by, let's give it a second, by due diligencing granola.ai. So I picked Granola for 2 reasons. 1, awesome team, awesome product. But 2, it's a relatively early product. And even with a model like GPT 4.1 mini, the model has no idea what really we're talking about. Let's see what it says. It says, Granola is a company that typically focuses on using artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies to optimize energy consumption and improve energy efficiency. OK, so kind of 2 problems that we have here. 1, language model isn't really doing what we want it to do. and 2, it doesn't really have the right information. So we'll solve problem number 1 by giving it a system prompt, giving it some kind of behavior here. So we'll say, you are a VC analyst. This is a fantastic system prompt, by the way. You excel at producing due diligence reports to help make investment decisions. That's it. But now, just in changing that, we've changed the behavior of the language model to give us a bit more of like the memo style format that I think we'd all be expecting. But now, as you can see, this is just complete BS. Like it's given us a template here. So we've got to augment the language model's context. And what we're going to use to do that is what we call a tool. If you're not familiar with tools, I like thinking about them just in the same way that we as humans use tools. And this is generally a tip for building agents. Like, you should think of how you as a human would approach building it first before you try and get a language model to do it. And so what I would do as a human is I would go to my browser and I would type in Granola AI, and I would kind of check what's up over here. So we're going to do the same thing now. So we're going to provide a tool. And sorry, I'm not live coding because I don't have a death wish. We've got one tool here. And in this tool, when you define tools for a language model, you need to define 3 things. A description. This is really important and sometimes underrated, because this is what the language model needs to decide whether or not to use this tool or not. Parameters. What does the language model need in order to actually invoke that tool? So right, you can't scrape a website if you don't have a website link to scrape. And then finally, the code that the language model should actually run when it decides to, or the code we should run if the language model decides to run this tool. And in this tool, we're using a service called Exa. If you've never heard of it, it's awesome. It's like a Google for agents kind of thing. Really nice programmatic API. Sorry, I leave that up. A programmatic API for doing web search. And so all we're doing here is we're passing in the company URL, specifying keyword search, asking for one result, and we want it to be live up to date. And then we just return that result. So if we now run this code, we should see our augmented output, but we see nothing. And the reason why is that we're only handling a text case right now. We're only handling if the model generates some text, and it's generating a tool call. It wants to use a tool. So if we handle that, we should see, we check for the tool call chunks and log it out to the console, and check for a tool result and log it out to the console as well. So if we run this code now, we'll see our tool call. It's correctly inferred the URL from the context of the conversation, and then we'll see our tool result. So here we've got the result of scraping that page. So great, we've solved the problem. We've now got the context we need, but this isn't very helpful for our due diligence memo. So we've got to send that information back to the model alongside the previous context and make this more agentic. So what we could do, we could wrap this in a while loop, because not hot take, it's kind of an accepted take. Agents are just while loops until you hit a stopping condition. So we can do that, but the SDK actually makes it a lot easier. We can instead define stopping conditions declaratively. So in this case, what number are we on? We're on 8. We can scroll down, and we've now got this new, this is actually running AI SDK 5, which is in alpha right now, will be released in a few weeks' time. But we now have a stop when parameter where we can define certain stopping conditions for the model. In this case, we're saying you can run up to 10 steps, run that loop up to 10 times. So now if we were to run this, we should see our tool call. We should see our tool result. And now we're getting out an output that is much more grounded, so to speak. Granola is an AI-powered notepad, blah, blah, blah. So that's right. It's not an energy efficiency company here. So this is like, these are the fundamentals of building with language models and building agents with language models. Earlier today, I took another like 30, 40 minutes to build out 8 more tools. And I wanted to show you like the quality of the, oops, we need to, number 9. Is that working? Yeah. So I just replaced, I gave it a slightly different system prompt here to give it a bit more indication on how to use the tools. And then I added some, sorry for jumping around, and then I added some more tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this, and I'm going to show you the tools in the background. So if we go to these tools right here, we've got now 9 tools: scrape company website, which we just looked at, fetch Crunchbase, fetch funding, fetch pitchbook, a little bit boring. All of these functions are very similar to what we saw before. We're searching exa with like some, in this case, pitchbook, and saying only include results from pitchbook.com. And then we have, we're taking advantage of the unified API with the AI SDK. So we call Perplexity because Perplexity can do this nice like mix of searching the web and actually inferring on top of it. So we ask it to generate some and return some competitors, as well as a little bit of competitor analysis. We have get founder background. This was always fun, like stalking LinkedIn's for founders. And there's a version of this that also goes through their Twitter, their blogs, all that kind of stuff, which is really cool. One more cross-referencing using Perplexity to get information on the company, as well as like product, pricing tier, and things like that. And then the very last one, we have a specific step just for generating our report. And in this case, we're going to use a more powerful model, OpenAI's O4 Mini, a reasoning model. We give it a more customized system prompt, asking it exactly like what kind of memo we want it to follow. And then this, unlike the others that were all like reading actions, collecting information, this is a writing action. And this is actually writing a markdown file to my local system. But you could imagine like sending that to Slack or whatever you might want to do. So we have our report here. And if we preview, there it is right here. We've got our investment memo. So company overview, granola, this is correct. Employee numbers, I think it's correct. We got problem statement, solution statement. We've got market opportunity, 50 billion, that sounds pretty good. Product and tech. We've got business model. I think it even pulls in pricing, competitive analysis, differentiating factor, team, traction with funding amounts, and then a thesis and risks. And yeah, so like I think for 10 minutes of work, and I think this probably costs like 10 cents and maybe ran for 30 seconds. It's pretty cool. And I think it gives you a good idea of like how we can all use solutions like this to build software to solve our own problems. So yeah, thanks very much.
Awesome. We may have time for a couple of questions. Are there any questions? Oh, right. Someone pass that off to whatever that is. What are the new features?
The new features, yeah. So Damien kind of alluded to one. We've had the big reason for making, this is going to be a very big breaking change. This is version 5 for us. It's our first big major in, I think, at least a year now. And what drove the decision was completely redoing the underlying specification. So if you think of like the unified layer, it's like every provider has to go into this unified layer, and that is what we interact with. And when we built that original specification, V1, language models were generating text and tool calls. Now we've got fully multimodal models, we've got reasoning, we've got like streaming arbitrary data, all this kind of stuff, and we needed like a more robust platform, as kind of BS businessy as that sounds, to build upon. But in completely redoing that, it gave us an excuse to tackle a lot of stuff that we had wanted to work on and break a lot of things to make that stuff work. So classic example of it was like we've allowed to, I actually got a, where is it on the docs? I suggest checking out this, which walks through the changes in the alpha. See if we go out here. So we completely redid this, like this, the way that we handle messages. Like a classic problem of working with language models is context management. And there's a very different message that you want to have in your UI with like metadata and which model was used versus the actual message you want to send to a language model to strip things away and things like that. So spent a lot of time on that. We completely redesigned our use chat hook. So we're able to separate like the transport layer, which is going to be great for Damien. Like, and so we probably support like WebSockets in the future and things like that. And then my favorite stuff is all the agents. So we use stop when very briefly, but which should be over here. This allows you to like stop the conversation at any arbitrary stopping point you want, but things like if it's used a tool, like generate a report, you want to stop it right there. There's nothing else for it to do. Or like spending a certain number of tokens, things like that. So there's a lot here. I could blabber on for forever. But yeah, check this out. It's on the docs.
Yeah, I've been really excited seeing all of the V5 stuff coming out. As with all the speakers, a load of them on Twitter, and I would say Nico's pretty active in posting all of the fun stuff happening. So definitely follow on Twitter, along with Damon, Natalie, and James. Actually, they're all on Twitter. I think we all met on Twitter to be fair, so
yeah.
it's kind of nice stuff. It's all there. But yeah, everyone, for you guys, Nico, that was awesome.